fast forward a little bit now, take us kind of mid 70s, you moved to LA and you start to record at Sound City. It's such a magical studio, and so many great records have been made there. So what do you remember about those times and how the band sort of changed at that point, and the recording process at Sound City?
Well, I mean, that even the mention of Sound City, like, is one of those things, a little element of like, what if I'd won out and told Peter that Peter was no good, Had I not got in a car, I mean, the whole story is beyond belief, really. Bob Welch was still in Fleetwood Mac. We had a couple more, 2 or 3 weeks or something of that nature left on the tour. And I had a short break, went home. I was living off Laurel Canyon on Fernwood. And of course, in Laurel Canyon, the store is still there, the country store, which is a lot of history. Probably maybe touched on in that film, I'm not sure, probably not. But there's a whole great documentary that's all about that whole era.
Sure.
Joni Mitchell and so forth. So I'm there just buying a sandwich to take up to Joni and the kids. Left my old beat up Cadillac outside, walked in, and I'm forgetting his name, and I should know his name because it was so important, really. He was a sort of socialite chap that would go around. You never quite knew what he was up to. Obviously, leave it
the
at
shifty characters, right?
No, I just always in the middle of stuff. So he's probably up to delivering things to people in the middle of the night.
Could be shifty.
Who knows? But
everyone was happy to see him.
Yeah, everyone was very happy to see him. And he said, "Well, what are you up to?" And I said, "Well, I'm actually in town trying to cost out a studio because I was in charge of supposedly being the manager, as I did for years and years and years. So it was one of my duties." So and he said, "Well, I've just started a job repping a studio called Sound City." I had no idea. And it's just over in the valley. So I said, well, let's go and take the stuff out of my car, because I had a soft top that never worked. Shoved all the food in the back of his car, left the car in the car park there, and ended up going to the studio. I met Keith Olsen and showed me the studio, and by pure coincidence just said, play Buckingham Nicks, which was Stevie and Lindsay's album, that I couldn't have heard more than maybe 10, 15 minutes of it flicking through. He said, well, this is something I worked on in this studio. So we just played it just to demo the speakers, And
did you immediately take to it?
Apparently so. The adage is that that had to have happened, because I spent a little while there inadvertently. I'd met Lindsay, said hello, and he said, oh, they're rehearsing next door. And Bob was still in the band, and I thought, this is a cool place, and that was about it. Saw Stevie through a thing and apparently waved to her, and she knew more about Fleetwood Mac. Lindsay knew a little bit and really liked an album called Then Play On, but all the stuff prior to that, he was not privy to, all the bluesy, extra focus bluesy type albums and stuff, which meant nothing one way or the other. I found all that out later. So I left, and then Bob left at very short notice. I sort of knew he was miserable and had some private matters to take care of. And in his world, he was making a run, which turned out well for him. I helped manage him for years. And he became Bob Welch, the solo artist, and actually had a lot of success. But it was a shock when he left, because we're about to go in the studio.
Right.
We're like, whoa.
He probably regrets it a little bit now, but
well, he's passed away, so
sorry.
From heaven above.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, he had a great run on his own. I don't think there were any regrets. ish. But it would be like being the original drummer in the Beatles.
Right, right.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Apparently he has a very good sense of humor. But so the music that I heard had to have had a huge effect subliminally. It had to have, because when Bob dropped the bullet, the bomb, just like a channel came back. I said, what was that music in my head? What was that music I heard? And I remember focusing on, as I would always, guitar playing, which, by the way, Stevie's never forgiven me for. If it wasn't for Lindsay, I would never have been in the band. But which is sort of true at the beginning. And I phoned Keith up at the studio, found him, and said, "What was that music you were playing?" And he gave more detail. It was an album, and they're working on another album now, and I don't quite know how that's going to turn out. And I said, I have a feeling that the guitar player would, because Bob's left, would he want to join Fleetwood Mac? So in that 20 minutes, which says a mega dose of kudos to the music that Lindsay and Stevie made that amount of an impression, that when I drew down on it and remembered it in short fashion, really, it had that amount where I was said, the guy I heard playing is the deal. And that's what led to them joining Fleetwood Mac. So from the greengrocer up the road in Laurel Canyon, and going down there, meeting the dude, to Sound City, and knowing what Sound City spawned, not only for us, but
everyone, Nirvana, to everyone.
Yeah, but that great documentary, Dave Grohl
did it. Yeah.
I love doing that, and all the stories that came out of that place. But it happened. The music spoke so loudly, and then I realized, but very soon on, I realized, and Lindsay said, "Well, I come with my partner."
Right.
And I soon realized that they wrote all the songs together, and I said, "Well, that's great." But that's the story that Stevie always naggles me at.
So you guys actually ended up recording, and that
never forgiven me that I was actually choosing a guitar player first.
She was the afterthought. She was
No, I've actually heard that, because you had Christine in the band. You were sort of like, do we need another singer, right, at that point?
Well, we knew, and I knew when I really locked down and started. Remember, I hadn't sat and listened to the album until I got back to LA, but I'd already said I really have a good feeling about it. And he said, "Well, maybe or whatever." And Lindsay did not want to do it.
Yeah.
And they'd already started writing a lot of the songs. Ended up on the first album they did with Fleetwood Mac, Crystal. We redid, which came off actually the Buckingham Nicks album. So I loved that so much. I asked them if we could repeat it. You know, that was the song that really brought them into Fleetwood Mac in many ways, I would imagine.
Definitely.
And it's still heartbreaking, you know, the power of that song. And so off we went, and Christine and John, by that time I had a tape, you know, went down to Malibu, where they were living at that point when they were married, and said, "This is what I'm suggesting should seriously be asked to join Fleetwood Mac," both Stevie and Lindsay. They loved the music. And the only comedic thing that Christine said, "Well, just do me a favor, let me meet Stevie, because there's nothing worse with two women that don't like each other."